Hello and welcome back to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. And on this episode, we are looking at 2009's Gentlemen Broncos. Joining me as always, my co-host extraordinaire, Aaron.
Are you relaxed, Dan?
Feeling so relaxed. I was wondering how far we'd get into the episode before one of us did that.
You know I had to just get it out of the way right away here.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So how you doing, Aaron? You ready for this one? I know we've been hyping it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm super pumped for this movie. It is definitely an underrated movie, so yeah, I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, the more I thought about this, I was confused by it. I'm not actually sure how many people even know this movie exists, which is really weird because it comes after two pretty well-known films. This is, of course, from director Jared Hess, who famously made a huge splash with Napoleon Dynamite. And then he did Nacho Libre with Jack Black, which we both love. I think you're on record as saying it's one of your favorite movies of all time.
Oh, yeah. Top 5 for sure.
And then after Nacho Libre, he made Gentlemen Broncos.
Yeah.
And Gentlemen Broncos is very much a spiritual successor to Napoleon Dynamite in its tone and flavor. And yet, Aaron, this movie is so buried. I don't know how to explain it. Like, this movie had a budget of $10 million and at the box office made $118,492 worldwide. And it never enters the same conversation as Napoleon Dynamite or Nacho Libre. So I find that really fascinating. And it's a good time to bring it up because Jared Hess is, of course, directing the Minecraft movie that's about to come out. It'll probably be out at the time of this recording going live. That movie actually reunites him with Jack Black and Jermaine Clement and Jennifer Coolidge. The latter two actors are in this movie. So going back and watching this has been so fun and such a trip.
Oh my gosh, is that the new Chevalier book?
You stole my story.
Awesome.
All you did was change the character names and turn Bronco into a tranny.
This is ridiculous.
Cookie! How about you come down here and fight me like a man?
Seize him.
But there's one thing I can't stand. It's plagiarism. I'm completely distressed. I can't even concentrate on my audiobook narration.
This came out in 2009. It sits on Rotten Tomatoes at 20% and has an audience score of 45%. And I haven't seen it in forever, Aaron, but I have really fond memories because I watched this for the first time with you and a friend or two. And I remember us just losing it the entire movie. From start to finish.
I think we are the target audience for this sort of movie. It is definitely in our wheelhouse. And Dan, were you a big fan? I know you like Nacho Libre, but were you a big fan of Napoleon Dynamite?
I was, at first, it grew on me because when it first came out, everybody was talking about it and quoting it, and I actually thought it was really annoying, but this was also during the era of like the hipster movement where these were considered like hipster films. So I kind of steered clear of Napoleon for a good long while. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, okay, I get it. This is pretty awesome, actually.
It was the same thing for me where I had a ton of friends, because I was in high school at the time. And they would, everyone was quoting it. And it took me a good while to see the movie. But for me, what ended up happening is it got overhyped to me. So that when I watched it, I was just like, this isn't that good. So Napoleon Dynamite, while I see where the appeal is, it never really hit a chord with me. But this movie, for some reason, like for me personally, and obviously, like I just said, because of it getting overhyped for me, I think that this may be rated higher in my books than Napoleon Dynamite.
In a lot of ways, it is for me too. I think this movie has way more layers to it. And is a way more complex narrative. There's so much symbolism and stuff going on in this movie that we'll get into. But I agree. I know humor is wildly subjective, but I gotta say, watching this last night again, from start to finish, I was smiling and laughing constantly. And Brie, who had never seen it, I put it on and was just like, you gotta see this. And she really enjoyed it. She loved it. She thought it was It was hilarious and cute and smart. And then when I told her it was 20%, she was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I don't know why people don't talk about this movie more, or why it didn't make more of a splash in the, I don't know if it was marketing or what, but this movie is so buried that it's not even a cult classic. It's literally just undervalued and underappreciated. I gotta imagine that if this Minecraft movie's a hit, and if it has Jared Hess's sensibilities, people are probably going to go back and look at his film catalog, and they're going to see a bunch of movies that are really critically panned and also didn't do well at the box office, but are generally speaking quite fun to watch. And it's such a bizarre career trajectory.
But you know what? I really do enjoy his his career trajectory.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting, you know, where I think that probably Minecraft is the biggest movie he's done. I mean, obviously Napoleon Dynamite struck a chord and, you know, people loved it, but it was never, you know, going to be this like huge box office movie, which I think they are obviously trying a little bit more with Minecraft because it is like one of the biggest games out there.
Oh, yeah.
And with one of the widest like age ranges as well. So you know, like this is definitely the biggest, probably one of the biggest movies he's ever done. So it'll be real interesting to see what happens.
Well, people know about Vote for Pedro, but they don't know about Brutus and Balzac, and I just think that's so criminal.
The Yeast Lords.
The Yeast Lords, man.
So that's kind of one of my questions that I had for you, Dan, here is, do you think that it was, you know, the Yeast Lords is, you know what they're referring to, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is this movie too vulgar? Did it gross people out? I don't know.
Last night, I was thinking about this, and I don't like using this term because I think it's really cliche, but I can't get away from it. I have to use it here. This movie feels misunderstood to me. I think it was wildly misunderstood at the time, but I think anybody watching it now would have a totally different take on it. I think it's a smarter movie than people gave it credit for back then.
Yeah.
I think at the time it just, people thought it was the 12 people that watched it, right? I feel like it was, they thought it was childish and immature, or I don't know. I think just the absurdity of it was too much for people at the time.
We're all very sorry. Lord Dacius sends his regards, but we're investigating ways to strengthen the military. Your gonad is being used for research.
You took my nads.
We only took one.
You took my nads, Dennis.
I know you're upset, but we plan to give it back. We'll be done with it very soon.
Darn you. Flippin' Dacius.
One thought I had watching this movie is, even though it's, you know, quote unquote vulgar, it still maintains this like certain innocence about it.
Yeah.
So in my head, I was like, I don't think that it's as vulgar as like a Seth Rogen movie.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, it does it in like a classy way, but it also in a way that kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. And I think that's like a little bit of Jared Hess's humor.
Totally.
And of what he likes to put in his movies, where you're just kind of like not sure if it should be funny, but you kind of, I don't know, like it anyways.
Yeah. Well, Jared and Jerusha Hess is, that's really hard to say, Jerusha Hess, his wife, they co-wrote this one. And I think they co-wrote Napoleon as well. Maybe Libre, okay. I didn't check, but they are so good at taking things right to that line. I mean, they might cross it a little bit in this movie, but like they're so good at taking things right to the line where it doesn't become a gross out thing, but it's just silly and absurd enough to toe that line. It's just like a razor edge. And this movie really bumps up against that, like, you know, 3 or 4 times. But they're so good at creating these awkward but believable and lovable misfit characters. And this naturalist way of acting that kind of blurs reality.
Yeah.
It's set in an alternate universe, but just like a degree left of, you know, normal. Everyone in the movie's just slightly strange, and it just but it all comes together in this big stew.
That's one thing I wanted to mention to you, because we briefly talked before we started recording just about how I would love to know what Jared Hess's upbringing was, because he is able to just write these characters so well, and he's able to make them have these like just subtle little nuances that just make them feel like real people, and also people that you might like already have in your life, like very similar.
Yeah.
Like we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but you know, Dan and I had very religious upbringings, and I feel that I have met someone similar to each of the characters that was in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe his upbringing or whatever, like he experienced a lot of this stuff. Also, he has that, what is that other movie? We watched that one as well, where it's like a pastor finding like biblical relics or whatever.
Yes.
And it's the same thing too, where it's just very, very quirky characters. I think Sam Rockwell is in that one as well. So again, he likes to use his, he's got like favorite actors. Let me find the name for you.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. I know we'll get into this, but Sam Rockwell, man, he does some fun stuff. He always takes on the quirkiest roles.
Don Verdeen. That is what the movie is called, if anyone out there is interested. Don Verdeen.
Don Verdeen. Yeah, that one's awesome.
Yeah, and again, the storyline is it's like what would you call it, like a mega church preacher or whatever that's finding like lost biblical relics, and it's like Indiana Jones of the church. I don't know, but it's like fun, quirky. It's got that same kind of feel to it.
Oh, this could be funny to kind of play with this. And,
Totally.
Okay,
Have
awesome.
a kid get ripped off.
Have the hack writer come and talk. And it's also funny to include like a large majority of homeschool kids there in the audience. And
We homeschool Art.
we're a supporter of it. But
Okay.
we recognize
the
stigma attached.
Dan.
Yes.
Did you know many homeschoolers when you grew up?
The school I went to, it was very like redneck and stuff, but I definitely probably fit in more with like the nerdy kids at the time. So I knew a lot of like peculiar people for sure. And I was probably one of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And like I wasn't homeschooled, but I did because I went to a Christian school. So it's basically a homeschool. It's the next closest thing you can get to being homeschooled, right?
Yeah.
And so honestly, I was just like loving these characters and loving the portrayal of homeschoolers in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's get into it. Let's touch on the cast because this has some incredible performances. And then I want to get into the plot and unpack some of the layers in this movie because I picked up on some really cool themes in here and I wanted to talk about them with you.
Yeah, okay. So we got, again, it's been a while. Please forgive. Yeah.
Last night when I wrote it down. Yeah, I knew it.
Michael Oregano.
Good enough.
We got Jermaine Clement as Chevalier. Sorry.
Chevalier.
Sorry. Why you make me do this?
Yeah. You want me to do it?
One day I'm going to be better at this, okay? Okay. We got Mike White as Dusty, Jennifer Coolidge as Judith, Haley Pfeiffer as Tabitha, and Hector Jimenez. I'm probably butchering that because it has like a Spanish accent to it, but as Lonnie Donahoe.
He was in Nacho Libre.
Yeah, Steven.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else you would on?
Sam Rockwell.
Yes,
who plays Bronco and Brutus.
Yeah, and do you know who the his like companion lady is? I was trying to find out her name.
Yeah, I was trying to find her name, and I was unsuccessful.
We'll call her Golf Ball Nipples.
Some sort of weird chess piece happening there. Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
What's all this crap? I thought you said he was good at making bombs and robots and stuff.
What I meant to say was, he likes collecting things.
What's he doing now?
I don't know. He must have found something.
I'm not seeing it. Not seeing results. All I see is a bunch of organic waste.
So we got the character Benjamin. So it kind of opens up. He's, hanging out with his mom, a real mama's boy, which is played by Jennifer Coolidge. And also, I just want to say that this is probably like the least Jennifer Coolidge role that I've ever seen her in.
Very subdued.
Yeah, because we had Stifler's mom. She was in The White Lotus, and she always plays these kind of. I mean, she was very quirky in this movie, but she always plays like a little bit of a sexual deviant in other shows and movies. But in this, she was like very, very wholesome.
Yeah, she was
that's
very
what I
sweet.
mean is by. Yeah, the least Jennifer Coolidge role I have ever seen her in.
Jared was really specific about what he wanted. And I really like that because sometimes, especially, when it's someone else's writing, it's really hard to just, guess what they're like. But he was really, he would say, this is how my mother would say it. And, he really was very specific.
So you did get a sense that it was sort of based on a real character?
Oh, yeah, he took me out to lunch with his mother.
Oh.
Jared and Jerusha took me out to lunch with Jared's mother, and she was an incredibly glamorous woman, and I know she's horrified to see how unattractive we made her in the movie.
So she is the mother, and it kind of starts out, that she's sending her son to a camp, and the camp is, it's got a funny name, Cletus Fest?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Cletus Festival.
Yeah. And which is headlined by Jermaine Clement's character. How do you say that again, Dad? Chevalier.
Chevalier.
Chevy
Cavalier.
Yeah, Chevy Cavalier. There we go. But anyways, so he is the kind of like the headlining person, as he is a sci-fi author. So he's doing a little workshop on how to write a better sci-fi novel. He also does this hilarious scene where he calls it the power of suffix, and he adds little bits to names to make them better, but it's just so freaking pretentious. I'm not sure that they actually make the names better, but it is a very, very funny scene.
I'm assuming you love to write fantasy fiction, except the character names in your stories are suffering. Need thou not be afraid? We can add Onius, Ainus, or Anus to just about anything, and it becomes magical.
You can call me Erroneous.
Erroneous.
Maybe I'll call you Deanus. Sorry.
Erroneous and Deanus.
Yeah.
Those are our sci-fi names.
Yeah. But so they're at this little whatever sci-fi convention type thing, and then they're also having a contest for their sci-fi novels, where if they win the contest, they can get a little publishing deal. So all the people who are kind of attending the seminar, they all submit their writings, and Chevalier, he reads The Yeast Lords, which is written by Benjamin, and he gets quite enthralled with it. And he also gets a phone call from his publisher, just saying that the book that he did write, bombed hard and was not very good, and he's got to bring them something better, or else they're gonna cut his deal and axe him. So he gets real desperate, and he steals the script, or steals the book that Benjamin had been writing.
I had a question, if I could interject for a sec. Do we actually find out who wins the writing contest? Did I miss that, or does that just kind of go by the wayside?
It is honestly a 10-second clip. And I don't know if it's a news reporter who's watching, or if it's a newspaper clipping, but it just shows him standing with some bald guy giving and shaking hands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed it. Okay.
I thought the same thing.
So Chevalier steals his book unbeknownst to Benjamin, but what's happening in parallel is he befriends Tabitha and Lonnie, who are student filmmakers and very pretentious student filmmakers. They decide that they want to make a movie out of his book.
Yeah.
And you really get the sense that him and his mom are very, very tight on cash to the point where like, $100 a month could kind of make or break them. So when Benjamin's offered $500 for the rights to his, I guess, screenplay or manuscript for filming, he gladly accepts, but he's a little reluctant about it. So in the background, you have Chevalier working towards the release and retooling Benjamin's book in order to make it his own. You have Benjamin dealing with the fact that this movie that he's become a part of is going totally sideways and isn't at all what he had envisioned for his novel. And whenever we go into his novel, you get these cutaway scenes featuring Sam Rockwell in like what would essentially be the movie version, what's in Benjamin's head basically of what this book looks like. And there's some of the funniest, most ridiculous sequences ever put to celluloid, Aaron. And it's just so funny.
Yeah. And the other thing that they do that's really cool is because Sam Rockwell's character kind of goes in between Chevalier's take on his story on the Yeast Lords, and then it also goes back to Benjamin's take on the story. So you get this really cool effect where it's the same character, but kind of just told from two different perspectives, I guess.
Totally. Whereas Benjamin names him Bronco, Chevalier changes his name to Brutus and makes him more effeminate. As Benjamin puts it, that he turns him into a transvestite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is really funny. Really, really funny the way that all pans out.
Cyclops there. Cyclops there. Cyclops there. Turrets. Moon buggies. Oh my holy crap. Surveillance does. I hate those. This is ridiculous. That's the most well-guarded yeast factory I've ever seen. Kananka! Kananka! Show me your bag of secrets.
You kind of have this slow unraveling where Benjamin kind of confronts Chevalier a couple times.
Yeah.
But he kind of slithers away,
He's just kind of lost, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes back and he's now recording with Lonnie and Tabitha on their movie. And he's kind of watching them record, like mess with his script, with his novel that he wrote, and to make creative liberties with his writing and kind of twist it into whatever, that they saw fit. He kind of gets... I don't know, what would you say, like choked up about it or chapped about it?
Oh, yeah. You slowly start to see him, like the cracks show. Because he's a very quiet, very like stoic character. But you can see it getting to him visibly, all throughout the movie, that he's just kind of a pushover. And he's reaching that boiling point slowly.
Yeah. So they finish filming the movie. And they have a little premiere for their Yeast Lords movie made by Lonnie and Tabitha.
Yeah.
And on the night of the movie, after the premiere of it, he gets, I guess, attacked by people just saying that he copied... Sorry, what does Chevalier call... Because it's not called... Yeast Lords.
No, he calls it Brutus and Balzac.
Yeah.
What is it? There's a subtitle to it. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. The yeast years of the... something like that underneath.
Of course, Benjamin is all choked up about it because, he didn't copy anyone. He's just been trying to stay true to himself and everyone else has been ripping him off.
Yeah.
Hey, Benji. Remember who you are and what you stand for. I love you forever and ever.
So his mom's desperate for money and thinks that she's got a lead to get her clothing into major retail stores.
Yeah.
But the guy she goes to see is this total scumbag and is really just trying to basically say, if you sleep with me, I'll put your clothes. We probably didn't mention it, but Jennifer Coolidge's character designs her own fashion.
Yeah.
It's hysterically bad fashion, but that's what she does. And so... Jennifer Coolidge, her character, Judith, she's heartbroken because she thought she was getting her big break, but really this guy was like, oh, if you sleep with me, I'll put your clothing in, you know, all these outlets across America. And of course she doesn't do it because she's a sweetheart. And this is where Benjamin finally snaps.
You don't mess with someone's mom.
Yeah. And so he ends up shooting the guy with 2 blow darts dipped in dog poop.
Oh, yeah.
And then and then that's when he goes to the book signing. But because he used his own clothes as a decoy, he shows up at the book signing wearing one of his mom's like nighty gown dresses or something. Yeah. He hits Chevalier in the face with a pillow, and it busts his lip, which is hilarious to me.
I loved it because he's like, put the pillow down. Like it's a serious weapon.
Yeah, and then the police haul him away and he's in jail and his mom has to bail him out. It's a really cute moment, actually. She's got the popcorn car.
It is very, very funny.
It's so funny.
After he gets bailed out from jail from his mom, she also comes and brings him some gifts because I guess it's his birthday.
Yeah.
One of the presents that she gets him is that she's been submitting all of the books he has written to the Writers Guild. Yeah. Dan, you are someone who has dabbled in writing. Would you be able to explain like how this whole Writers Guild kind of situation works?
Yeah, so I've written, I've probably written about a half dozen books. None of them have been professionally published. That's a whole other story. But the way I understand it is essentially like submitting your book for copyright, but you're submitting it for copyright before publication. So it's basically like getting it in the system so that your idea can't be stolen per se. The exact system that they use, I'm not sure. I think it's fictitious, like the way, you know, the certified seal and all that. I'm pretty sure that's fictitious, but the idea is there for sure.
Okay. So basically, his mom submits all of his stories to the Writers Guild there, and he's able to prove that he is he wrote the story and he was copied and not the other way around. And then he is able to go after Chevalier and, get his books taken back and his book published.
Yeah.
And that's the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's a beautiful wrap-up. Let's dive into it because there's a surprising amount to unpack here.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate, I wanted to talk really quick about something Tabitha says at the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
She kind of busts into the hotel room that Benjamin's staying at the writer's camp. He kind of reluctantly lets her read the first couple pages of his manuscript. And that's when we're kind of first introduced to Sam Rockwell as Bronco.
Yeah.
We see the page come to life via Sam Rockwell and company.
Yeah.
Benjamin says how like no one's ever really read his stuff before. And Tabitha says that you'll never get anywhere by just letting your mom read your work.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool moment that comes back at the end of the movie because his mom, not only was she reading the work, but she was the one that was protecting his work by submitting it to the Writers Guild. So Tabitha was exactly wrong because the movie ends with him finally getting somewhere because his mom was the only person reading his work. And I just think that was such a full circle, awesome thing to do in the movie. So...
And also, anyone out there who's writing books, it's like, the more people you read it, the higher chances of success you have, right?
I'll tell a really, really quick story just because it kind of goes along with this. Back in 2009, I self-published a book online, and it was before self-publishing really blew up. And I was really naive about it. It wasn't even professionally edited or anything. It had just been a book I was working on for years and years and years. But because the market wasn't really flooded yet, it was actually charting alongside major authors on the iBookstore because the iBookstore hadn't taken off yet. It wasn't a big thing. And I was just some kid living in Edmonton at the time with a book online. And so I have these screenshots on my phone of me charting a couple spots above, new and noteworthy, a few spots above Stephen King and all this stuff. And I was selling this book for a couple bucks. And I think in total, I managed managed maybe, $300 out of it. But it was like, I was like totally an imposter. And then I got all these hate reviews being like, this is trash. This is why self-publishing should be outlawed because people don't get editors and it's amateur bullshit and stuff.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah. But it was a wild moment for sure. Anyway, so back to the movie. I just think about that whenever I think of like publishing stories.
Oh, my jams!
Sorry, Bronco. We had to borrow one of your gonads.
Decius. I should have known it was you.
Oh, I'm not the real Lord Decius. My name is Dennis. I'm one of his many clones.
This movie has a lot of heart, and there's a couple themes I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
A lot of this movie is about grief and how you grieve somebody and about the dynamic that takes, like the way that changes a family when a family member passes away.
Mm-hmm.
The movie opens with these awesome sci-fi covers that were actually drawn by famous sci-fi illustrators. What are their names? Kelly Frias and David Lee Anderson?
Yep.
So we find out that Benjamin's father was a game warden named Barley H. Purvis.
Purvis is such a good last name.
Yeah. And he's a total man's man. He's got the big beard. He's got the long hair. Benjamin has his pocket knife. So much of what Bronco is to him is him sort of writing to deal with his grief about losing his dad. Bronco is very much his dad as a fictional character who rides deer and has the big beard and, is totally macho and all this stuff. And it's really adorable the way it's written, where Benjamin's trying to deal with loss and Judith is trying to deal with loss by pouring herself into her clothing. And, she even gets him a quote-unquote guardian angel from their local church to like help him out and sort of counsel him and be with him.
Honestly, I kind of want a guardian angel from a church like right now in my life.
Right?
Dusty, I want you to meet Benjamin. Well, I noticed you didn't have any friends, so I signed you up for the guardian angel program at church.
Your mom's smoking hot. I play my cards right. Maybe someday I'll be your real guardian.
This is just another layer to this film. But the guy who is it, Dusty? The guy that she gets to be his guardian angel, he shows up with a snake around his shoulders.
Yeah, okay.
Biblically speaking, a snake's never really a good sign. That's kind of like the
devil.
The devil. And sure enough, he sort of infiltrates his way into Benjamin's story and into the movie and ends up really doing a disservice to the character that was supposed to be his dad. And I just thought that was so interesting because he's supposed to be this mentor character, but he's actually really a snake.
I didn't. That's not how I didn't interpret it that way.
Oh, what was your interpretation?
That he was a snake. Well, I just thought, that he was just kind of like your naive young guy from a church that like just signs up to be a guardian. I didn't take anything that he was a snake because there is like a really nice line between him and Benjamin, like close to the end of the movie, when he gives some like words of encouragement to Benjamin, where he tells him like he shouldn't be sad that they kind of ruined his novel, and that he is actually like a very, very talented writer. I think he just ends up butchering the role of Bronco just because he's not an actor. And I'm pretty sure Lonnie only casted him because he was, romantically interested in him.
See, I thought he was just totally understated as like an evil character because
he
shows up with this snake and next thing you know, he's trying to kill Benjamin's cat with like rat poison blow darts, and Benjamin
that was
hurting his mom. And like, there's just all these things that kind of surround him. And it was funny. It's so funny, the different interpretation. I really got the sense that he was like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
That is actually one interesting thing about this movie, because even take Tabitha, right?
Yeah.
When we first meet Tabitha, she just seems like the most stuck-up, pretentious homeschooler and, asks to borrow money. And they kind of establish that Benjamin and his mother, are quite poor and don't have a whole ton of money. And here she is like, hey, day, like lying to him, saying that she's on her period and needs to buy tampons, and is taking money from him. And of course, you know, he's all like smitten with her, and so he gives her the money, and then she comes back with like literally her and Lonnie come back with like just an armful of snacks that they use the money for. Yeah. So I was sitting there being like, okay, she's kind of like a not a good character. Like she's using him or taking advantage of him. But then later on in the movie, she's romantically interested in him and also the same sort of thing. And so this movie, for some reason, it has this kind of weird tone where when the characters are first introduced to you, you almost think that they're bad people, but then they have this way of like redeeming themselves kind of towards the end. Everyone except for Chevalier.
I'm almost wondering if that's supposed to be Benjamin's point of view on people in general. Because one of the big themes that jumped out at me in this movie was this idea of rediscovering masculinity. Mm-hmm. At the start of this film, everyone's trying to wrestle away the memory of Benjamin's father from him and kind of bastardizing it into their own thing. Mm-hmm. He's very quiet and he's a pushover. And I noticed that the things that he's a pushover about, like the things that typically are being forced on him, are feminine in nature, like using him to buy tampons, using him to, you know, sell dresses, using him to be like this romantic lead in his terrible outfit, you know, wearing his mother's nightgown and like he's in this fantasy world with this really masculine character named Bronco. He's the man's man, you know. But then you have Chevalier, who takes the character that's supposed to represent Benjamin's dad, and he changes his name to Brutus. Now, Brutus comes from like Latin of like meaning like, you know, strength and rigidity. Like it's a very masculine name. That's where we get like you brute from, like brute force. And Chevalier turns that character into essentially a super effeminate trans person, which is completely opposite of what you would characterize as conventional masculinity.
Mm-hmm. I made us a time capsule. I put a buttload of keepsakes in it. We can send it floating downstream. And that way, if we die, future generations will learn from us. Look at this. It's a friendship stone. Come closer. Let's blow on it. You blow first.
It's not until Benjamin stands up for himself that he starts to wrestle back his own masculinity and become more like his dad. And he regains control over the memory of his dad, and people start to respect him more for it. And, you know, that's kind of when all those characters have that shift where they start to be more likable because he's getting more confident in himself. And I thought it was so cool that when he is finally confronting Chevalier at the end, he is wearing his mom's dress, because there's this interesting thread of like he's finally found like his inner quote unquote inner man, like his inner Bronco is finally come out, and he's comfortable in himself. You know what I mean? There's this really cool subtext going through the whole movie of Benjamin rediscovering masculinity.
Yeah, like you said at the beginning of this cast here, Dan, this movie has layers.
Oh yeah,
and you know it doesn't just stop there, because there is also the similarity between creative writers and then how studios will also take their property and completely change it, right? And like almost destroy it. So there's just so many things going on in this movie. It really does not deserve the rating that it has.
No.
It's such a deep movie.
It really is. You know, this movie, it honestly reminded me a lot of The Grieving Process. Like when my dad passed away in 2013, during like the funeral and the wake, and then later after, people started telling me all these different stories about him. And, you know, everyone from my mom to friends of the family and stuff. But some of these stories, some of them weren't very flattering. Some of them, if I'm being honest, kind of like tarnished my memory of him a little bit. And I regret hearing them, because I wanted to protect the memory of this person. And I had all this new information coming at me. And it almost felt like people were trying to revise or like wrestle away or put their stamp on my memory of this person that I grew up with, you know? And I really, that hit so hard for me in this movie, as quirky as it is, that vibe of like, you know, he wrote this story, it's about his dad without being about his dad, and everyone's trying to put their creative stamp on it and change what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, Aaron, but that just like really hit home with me.
Oh, no, definitely.
Will you give me a hand massage?
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that.
You have themes about masculinity and being comfortable with yourself. You have themes of grieving. You have, you know, the plagiarism angle of everything.
Yeah.
There's
standing up for yourself.
Yeah. And the family themes, like his relationship with his mom is just the sweetest thing ever. He champions her at every turn. He's trying to make money for her, you know, like...
That's actually where I ended up kind of relating with this movie because my father also passed away. Dan and I are part of the Dead Dad Clubs.
Dead Dad Club.
But, you know, like I currently, after he passed away, I felt, you know, very responsible for my mother.
Yeah.
So I kind of see that there where he's, you know, he goes out of the way for her, you know, he's willing to sell his intellectual property and let it get, you know, tarnished because he wants to provide for his mom, which is, you know, such a beautiful thing, right? Yeah. Wanting to take care of her.
Yeah.
So many layers, like an onion.
Yeah, I love the casting of Sam Rockwell because he plays it just perfectly. Sam Rockwell has done so many quirky roles.
Yeah.
Just like this. And this one, he does the duality so perfect of like the man's man, like roguish Han Solo style character. And then the effeminate but equally hilarious Brutus. It's just both are wildly entertaining. I would watch a whole movie just of those two, you know?
In all of us, in all of men, there is a Bronco and there is a Brutus.
There you go. And life is about balancing the two.
Yeah.
Man.
Life is about riding your rocket-propelled stag around while... That was honestly the deer with the rockets on them and like the guns in the eyes. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just so senile, so stupid, but like just so entertaining.
It is. I love that you have the representation of the inner battle happening at the same time as you have the inner battle, which is very fantastical and sci-fi-ish, and then you have the exterior battle, which is kind of like fairly ordinary, just people going about their daily lives, you know? He's just going to conferences, he's working on his craft, he's trying to become a published author, you know, navigate the very few friendships in his life and help his mom at the store. But on the inside, there's this rich world with yeast factories and cyclopses and laser beams and stuff and
balls and jars.
Yeah, testicles and gonads.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very relatable, you know, in a day.
The balls and jars?
Balls and jars.
Yeah. You want to tell me something?
Jerusha, she has a cousin that's like 14 and lives up in Alaska, and for a long time, he's written really messed up science fiction stories and fantasy stories that are really gruesome, and his parents have been worried about him. And we thought it would be a funny kind of idea for a film.
And we heard about him going to some writers' camp in the East Coast, and I mean, we didn't even know those existed.
Okay, so that was new to you too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
This goes back to that theme of masculinity because of rediscovering masculinity, because there's that saying like, oh, does your wife have your balls in a jar or whatever? You know, but this movie literally shows that.
Yeah.
And the idea is that Benjamin is being kept in this jar, and it's insane. I feel like I might be running the risk of overanalyzing this a bit, but just the idea of like the gonad representing Benjamin, and he's trapped in this jar, and he wants to be free.
Well, I don't think you're overanalyzing it at all, because at one point Tabitha does say, oh, your dad is Bronco, and you're the testicle that he lost, or something, and she she compares it all and like kind of relates it back. So I definitely think you're hitting the nail on the head here.
I just think if you haven't watched this movie before this episode, I probably sound like a crazy person. But it makes sense once you watch it.
Yeah. I also think that we should start changing pronouns to Bronco or a Brutus. Like, what do you identify as? Are you a Bronco?
Are you a Bronco or a Brutus?
Yeah. We need a lot more people to watch this movie so everybody is in on the joke.
I love every character in this movie.
Yes.
The performances are fantastic. Haley Pfeiffer as Tabitha is fantastic. Hector as Lonnie, what is his name? Donchenko or whatever.
Yeah.
He's such a weirdo, and he does that thing, the way he holds his mouth, like that weird expression he's so good at. It's just hilarious in this movie. And yeah, I don't know. I'm still struggling with this 20%. I really am, because there's just so much to discover in this movie.
Yeah, maybe people thought were personally attacked. Maybe there was like a group of homeschoolers that went out and saw this movie and they were like, hey, they're making fun of us, and then wrote poor reviews. That's my theory anyways.
One thing I did see online, which was really annoying, is I was trying to find old interviews of Jared Hess back during this time, Jared and his wife. And in all the interviews promoting this movie or any of his other movies back then, the interviewers were always trying to out Jared Hess. They were always asking him these dumb questions to try to be funny, or they weren't really talking about the film or exploring the themes. They were just trying to be in on the joke. It was really frustrating because I legitimately wanted to know about these specific themes, and nobody asked him about it on the press tour or after it came out.
And then it's a very interesting world that you've created in the film. So I was just wondering what you hope audiences sort of take from that. I mean, other than just laughing and getting the joke of it.
I feel like a lot of his films kind of get written off without people really exploring the themes. Like Nacho Libre is rated very poorly, and has so much going on in it, and is such a funny movie.
Jared Hess has got to be one of the most underrated directors and writers out there.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, as we put these bombs back into the memory cannons, do you have a WTF moment for this film?
Oh, yeah. I got several WTF moments. The first one, I'll say, when we get introduced to Bronco's partner, the bald-headed lady there. And she was like, I've been at the yeast factory. Smell my breath. So if you're at the yeast factory and your breath smells like yeast, that only means one thing. She was eating
Yeah.
Which I was just like, oh.
It's written in such a high-concept sci-fi kind of way, you know?
Yeah.
Guaranteed there's some books out there that probably sound just like that and would get away with it.
And yeah, in this movie, they got away with it.
Tastes like homemade licorice. Take me there. Take me to your yeast factory. I am your soldier.
The other one is, so that bald lady has a brother, and who is just like, I don't know, kind of on the spectrum, I'm assuming, and doesn't talk and just blows things up. But there's this scene where he reaches into a flesh pocket. Oh, it was just so gross. I don't know what it is.
I had to cover my eyes, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about a flesh pocket that's just so gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, he pulls a jar out with a testicle in it. So that was pretty what is going on?
Nothing if not unique, hey? That scene is so gross. I can't even watch it. I think my WTF scene is probably the other gross moment is the vomit kiss at the theater.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. No, that was a good one.
Benjamin is in the lobby of the theater during the premiere of his film, and he's out in the lobby, and he's throwing up in the garbage can because he just can't.
Just so nervous.
Yeah, he hates what's on screen. And Tabitha comes up to him and spins him around and just plants one on him.
Yeah.
And ends up with his barf on her face, and the barf, Benjamin doesn't do anything to clean it off. It just stays there for a while. And it is just so gross. So gross.
She kisses him and then, does a slow swallow after, like a gulp.
Oh, it's so gross.
Oh, yeah. But, I don't know what it is. And it's things like that. And I'm curious if anyone out there is like, no, I don't like that. Aaron, you are crazy. You should not find things like that funny, but I don't know why. I find it hilarious, and I just love this kind of, I don't know. It's humor that you got to kind of think about a little bit, and you got to unpack. It's not like the low-hanging fruit joke or anything like that. It's smart. Yeah. Smart humor.
Yeah, this movie is way smarter than it appears on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on in here.
Oh, sorry. When the snake takes a giant on Dusty, that also, I was like, why? And also, do snakes like that? Like, that snake must have had diarrhea or something, because that did not seem normal.
Yeah, I have no idea. I was reading, I think in a Jared Hess interview, he was saying that it was like beef stew and mustard or something, really, like it didn't smell bad or anything.
Oh, damn, there's one last thing that I wanted to bring up with you here.
Yeah.
And I'm not really too sure what to make of this, and maybe you'll be able to do a better job of tying it together. But I noticed that Dusty almost looks like a perfect split between Bronco and Brutus, right?
Totally.
It's so weird, because there's, he comes in, he says oh, your mom's hot, right?
Yeah.
And then, that's kind of it. And there's nothing really too much going on between him other than Dusty kind of just, hovering around her. But then there's this little scene towards the end of the movie when they're doing the little fashion show, and he comes out shirtless, and she kind of gives him a flustered look.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to put it together of why would he have been written to be a blend of both of those characters, but also kind of, I don't know. Am I overthinking things, or was there something there?
I believe that there's something there, just because I give this movie full credit, right? So I believe there's something there, but I think it goes back to my theory that he's almost like a devilish character in my mind.
Okay.
Less than he is an angel. And I think it's no accident that he bears resemblance to Benjamin's kind of fictionalized version of masculinity and what his dad was. He's like the central point of this weird yin-yang happening in this movie.
Yeah.
I think Judith he just reminds her of her husband, probably when they were young or something. I don't think it's anything too nefarious on her end.
Yeah.
But I do think he's a snake in the grass. I really do. I don't know if it's intentionally supposed to be that way, but he just seems like trouble through the whole movie. That actor, Mike White, he was one of the executive producers on the film, and he's worked with he's worked with Jared Hess in the past, so
there's another scene that I really liked, and it's just so random, but it's when Lonnie is dressed as the bald lady and they're filming, and he has a bald cap on. He's just leaning against a metal building, and then he gets up to act, and there's a big spot on the building from his makeup on his bald head. I don't know why. That just made me laugh so hard.
So funny. That bald head didn't look too bad.
No. I mean, what is the saying? Good from far, far from good.
In this first piece, we see an early rendering of a harpy named Linda. Here she uses her knowledge of lasers to rupture the crust of a distant moon. Here is a detail of the ruptured moon crust. Must rupture the moon crust, she's thinking. This is a piece that came to me in a dream when I was 11. I call it Migration, and it depicts a fleet of harpies synchronizing their mammary cannons to create laser rain. Hard rain's gonna fall. And finally, we have a youngling trying to penetrate the secrets of the human mind. You won't do it like that, youngling. You must use friendship.
Just in closing, too, there's another neat theme in this movie about, careful who you idolize and careful who you make your heroes.
Yeah.
At the start of this movie, Benjamin really does think he wants to be Chevalier or the next Chevalier.
Yeah.
He goes to this writer's camp to submit his work to him and to get on his radar, and he visits all his workshops, and there's that one that he goes to kind of mid-movie where Chevalier talks about how it's all about the money, and he shows him, he's like, why do you think I wear this bracelet? It's because of the money. People aren't going to remember our works of writing, of creativity. They're going to remember how much money we made. And you can see it, the disappointment on Benjamin's face. It's a very subtle performance, but you can tell any respect that he still had for Chevalier is just out the window, right? And it becomes kind of this battle of good and evil all of a sudden. I just think that's such an important message, because there's the other lackeys in the room that are still eating up everything Chevalier is saying when he recites that poem or that song lyric or whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's just hanging off his every word, but Benjamin, he sees right through it. And suddenly he doesn't want to be Chevalier anymore. He wants to be himself. And I just think that's a really, not unique, but a good takeaway from this movie is to, be yourself and be true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody else because you don't know, you might not like who they are once you get to know them. So
yeah. Dan, there's one thing I also want to mention about Mike White.
Yeah.
He's the creator of White Lotus, which for some reason took me until right now to put it together, but which is like one of the biggest shows out there right now.
He created White Lotus.
So yeah, which is wild. He's such an interesting person because I guess he was on Survivor. Like he was a contestant on Survivor. Yeah, and he's also known for writing in characters that were on Survivor in White Lotus. Like he's got so many, like he was a main writer in School of Rock. Like this guy's got some serious credentials and he's playing the most random role in a Jared Hess film. Yeah.
Unreal. Unreal.
So random.
Well, if you're just discovering Jared Hess for the first time with this Minecraft movie, or if you haven't thought about his movie catalog in a while, I would just like to encourage everybody to not just Napoleon Dynamite, not just Nacho Libre, but check out Gentlemen Broncos because I guarantee you will be surprised by it. It is really something. It is really quite something.
Yeah.
Even if it's not exactly your bag of humor, I think you'll appreciate the storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Aaron, what would you say to recommend this to somebody?
Well, I would say, are you looking for like a quirky comedy? Because this would be it.
Yeah.
And exactly what you just said there. Are you a fan of Jared Hess? And are you a fan of Minecraft? Maybe you want to explore, his catalog there? Then this is a great movie to watch. You can't go wrong. And also, I think that you should go out and watch this movie so that we can get this movie into cult classic status. Because maybe it's never going to be rated higher than 50%, but I still think it belongs in that cult classic status.
Yeah. It's kind of wild to think that the guy that directed this would go on to create, to direct this huge commercial movie, hey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying. Is it blows my mind that he's making that movie, and I actually have tickets to go see it on Tuesday. So I'm pumped. I will report back whether it is good or bad.
If you want to see something really jarring, watch an interview of Jared Hess talking about the Minecraft movie, and then compare that to one of his 2009 interviews talking about Gentlemen Broncos, because the vibe change is unbelievable that he's gone through.
Yeah. You know, and part of me is also curious to know what the Minecraft movie is going to be like, right? Because this is his first big studio production. And this whole entire movie, Gentlemen Broncos, is about like a big portion of it is about like studio interference in like movies and changing creative property. And so, you know, you can't write a movie like this without experiencing that in some way or another.
Yeah, totally.
So did he experience this making Minecraft? I wonder. And, you know, how did he deal with it, right?
This movie's been in the works for at least 5 years, I think. So,
well,
we'll talk about it on a jury duty and see how it compares to the rest of his films. He's bringing back a lot of his people he's worked with in the past, like we said at the start. And so that's all you always love to see that. Hey, directors who like using the same actors a lot. So these are all people that get what he's about, and I think that's important when you're dealing with someone like Jared Hess, and I think it's going to translate on screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Aaron, do you got anything else in your notes about Gentlemen Broncos?
No, I believe that's it for me. Other than if you haven't seen this movie already, go out and watch it. You're going to love it.
Yeah, totally. Easy to defend. Defending the themes, the characters, performances, literally everything. I do not understand the 20%, so it's an easy one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us. Thanks for checking out our episode. And again, sorry for the infrequent releases. We're doing our best. We're going to get stuff out just as soon as we can. Feel free to check out our social media links in the show notes. And please leave us a rating because it helps us beat the algorithms and get out there to more people.
Stay tuned.
We will see you in the next episode of In Defense of a Movie Podcast.
God, people have to listen to that. Oh, that would trigger me.